The OSHA Focus 4: Caught between, struck by, falls, and electrocutions. Today, they meet at their headquarters to determine a plan of attack for the day's mayhem. Machinery, cranes, unprotected platforms, and damaged electrical equipment will give the group some helping hands today. On the job site, an employee is working in a deep trench. A few feet away, equipment closes in on the trench, compromising the employee's safety. Even though the trench has been supported properly, someone has removed the exit ladder and there's no way out. The safety inspector acts quickly and replaces the exit ladder so the worker can safely get out of the trench. Caught between accidents are one of the major 4 accidents that OSHA training focuses on. Cave-ins are one example of this type of hazard. Trenches must be properly supported and have an accessible escape route. Trenches that are 5 feet deep or greater require a protective system. To determine the maximum allowable slope for an excavation, you need to know the soil type in the area. The softer the soil, the more shallow the slope. Remember that all of these sloped excavations have a maximum depth of 20 feet. If the trench is deeper than 20 feet, the protective system must be designed by a registered professional engineer. Being pulled into or caught in machinery is another example of a caught-between accident. Loose clothing can be caught in machinery, so be extra cautious when around this type of equipment. Being compressed or crushed between rolling, sliding, or shifting objects is the third type of caught-between hazard. This includes things like hydraulic beds that are lowering, heavy stacked equipment, or getting caught between an object and a wall. Always be aware of these potential hazards and avoid them. Inform your supervisor right away if you see a potentially unsafe situation. Next, a worker is working underneath other workers who are completing work on a roof at a job site. Someone has hidden all of the overhead work warning signs and barricades. Fortunately, the safety inspector is nearby and provides the worker with overhead work signage and warning lines to protect himself and coworkers from falling objects. Struck-by accidents are the next of the OSHA Focus 4 that we'll talk about. This type of accident is broken up into 4 categories. Struck by a flying object, such as nails from nail guns or sparks. Struck by a falling object, such as tools, blocks, or loads that are being suspended in the air. Struck by a swinging object, such as wrecking balls on cranes. And struck by a rolling object, such as a moving vehicle. Use nail guns properly and never point them at yourself or others. Be aware of what material you are shooting into. Always wear protective equipment when working with flying debris. Avoid the swinging radius of cranes and other equipment. And wear reflective vests to avoid being struck by moving vehicles on the job site. In this scenario, a worker needs an extension ladder to reach the wall he's about to work on. Unfortunately, someone has misplaced the extension ladder, and all that's available is a smaller A-frame ladder. The safety inspector once again comes just in time to provide the worker with an extension ladder that will appropriately reach the work area. Standing on the top of an A-frame ladder could lead to a serious fall, as the ladder wouldn't be stable at that height. Falls from ladders are only one of the ways in which falls pose significant hazards on a job site. Unprotected scaffolding, dangerous objects below, and failure to use fall protection all contribute to an unsafe work environment. Fall hazards are present at most work sites on a daily basis. This can be anything that could cause you to lose your balance or lose bodily support and result in a fall. Anytime you are working at a height of 4 feet or more, you are at risk. However, OSHA generally requires that fall protection is provided when working at 6 feet or above in construction or when working over dangerous equipment or machinery. In future videos, we will discuss fall protection in greater detail, but it's your responsibility to understand safe versus unsafe working conditions and report them to your supervisor right away. In our final scenario, a worker is going to use a corded drill to complete some work. Remembering that he inspected his cord previously, he's unaware that someone has replaced his new extension cord with an old defective one. Acting quickly, the safety inspector replaces the worn extension cord with a new one. Using damaged equipment can lead to an electrical shock, which is one of the 6 types of electrical hazards faced on the job. To remember electrical hazards, remember to be safe. Burns, electrocutions, shock, arc flash, fire, and explosions. Assume that all overhead and underground wires are energized at lethal voltages and avoid them. Call the electric utility company to report fallen electrical lines. Never touch a fallen overhead power line. Stay at least 10 feet away from overhead wires during all activities. Remember that it is mandatory to call 811 before you dig. If an overhead wire falls across your vehicle while driving, stay inside the vehicle and continue to drive away from the line. Warn people not to touch the vehicle or the wire and call the utility company and emergency services. Never operate electrical equipment while you're standing in water. Remove any damaged or defective equipment from service and check with your supervisor for repair or replacement instructions. Have a qualified electrician inspect electrical equipment that has gotten wet before energizing it, de-energizing any equipment that has gotten wet before moving or touching it. If working in damp locations, inspect electrical cords and equipment to ensure that they are in good condition and free of defects. Be sure that a ground fault circuit interrupter is always in use and inspected to ensure it's in good working order. Also, be sure the colored tape corresponds to the correct quarter for our assured grounding conductor program. Finally, it's important to understand the lockout-tagout procedure for GH Phipps. This impacts any type of hazardous energy: electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, chemical, thermal, and gravity. The lockout-tagout system ensures that all of these types of hazardous energy can be isolated and de-energized for the safety of all workers. Identification tags will warn you of hazardous conditions and will be marked with warnings like "Do not start," "Do not open," "Do not close," "Do not energize," and "Do not operate." You will also notice locks belonging to various companies and color-coded accordingly. Under no circumstances should any locks or tags be cut off. Check with your supervisor if you have any questions. Remember, when in doubt, find out. At the end of a hard day, the Focus 4 sit and wallow in the pity of their failures. Safety wins again. But safety's help isn't unconditional. If you take him for granted, he may not be around next time to prevent an accident. Remember, hazards on a construction site can be avoided if you're aware of your surroundings and any potentially unsafe situations. Follow the guidelines presented here and the instructions of your supervisor, and you can stay safe on the job every day.